Hey guys, tonight we are going to step away from the warm glow of the modern world and descend into the damp, grey, and strangely quiet underbelly of Victorian London. It is a place where the fog is thicker than the soup, and the river holds more secrets than the people walking above it. You probably believe this era was all top hats, stiff corsets, and tea in delicate china cups, but there is a grittier, slower reality waiting at the water's edge. A life dictated not by clocks, but by the relentless, hypnotic rising and falling of the tide. Before you get too comfortable, and possibly fall asleep halfway through, tap like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this odd mix of boredom and history. It keeps the channel alive and the stories just sleepy enough to help you drift off again next time. Now, dim the lights, let the world outside grow quiet, and turn on a fan if you like that soft, steady hum in the background. Let your shoulders loosen and your breathing slow. This is your time to drift. No rush, no deadlines, no noise. Just you, a little warmth in the air, and the faint whisper of history waiting to unfold. So, settle in and let's ease gently into tonight's journey together. You are waking up, but not because an alarm has rung. There are no digital chimes here, no jarring buzzers to slice through the heavy curtain of sleep. Instead, you are pulled from your dreams by the temperature. The cold is a physical weight, a heavy, damp blanket that has settled over the city during the night, seeping through the cracks in the walls and the gaps in the window frames. It is a grey, persistent cold, the kind that lives in the stones of the building and in the marrow of your bones. You keep your eyes closed for a moment longer, listening to the silence. It is not a perfect silence, of course. London never truly sleeps, but at this hour, just before the dawn breaks, the city is holding its breath. You can hear the distant, muffled rhythm of a cartwheel rolling over cobblestones streets away, a low, repetitive grinding sound that fades as quickly as it appeared. You push back the thin, scratchy wool blanket that covers you. It smells of old fabric and dust, a scent that is comforting in its familiarity. The air in the room is still, almost stagnant, preserving the chill of the night. You sit up slowly, feeling the stiffness in your back, the way your muscles protest the movement after hours of curling tight to preserve warmth. There is no rush. The tide waits for no one, but it also does not hurry. It follows the moon, and you follow the tide. You swing your legs over the side of the mattress, your bare feet hovering for a second before touching the floorboards. The wood is smooth from years of wear, polished by thousands of footsteps before yours, and it is startlingly cold against your skin. Dressing is a ritual of layers, a slow accumulation of defenses against the damp air awaiting you outside. You reach for your shirt, the linen rough and thick. It is not white, not anymore. It is a shade of beige that speaks of river water and coal smoke, a color that allows you to blend into the background of the city. You pull it over your head, the fabric rustling softly near your ears. Then comes the waistcoat, missing a button near the bottom, and the jacket, its elbows worn thin and shiny with age. You wrap a scarf around your neck, looping it once, twice, tucking the frayed ends into the collar of your coat. It scratches your chin slightly, a tactile reminder that you are awake, that the day has begun. You move to the window and wipe a small circle of condensation from the glass with the sleeve of your coat. Outside, the world has been erased. The fog has descended, a thick, yellow-gray pea, super that swallows the street lamps and muffles the world. It presses against the glass, an opaque wall that hides the buildings across the street. This is the London distinctive, a blend of river mist and coal smoke from a million chimneys, hanging heavy and low. It looks soft, almost inviting, like a cloud brought down to earth. But you know it tastes of soot and sulphur. You turn away from the window and pick up your sack. It is made of canvas, stained dark with mud and water, stiff in places where the grime has dried into the fibers. It is empty now, light and folded over your arm. But the hope is that by noon it will be heavy, dragging your shoulder down with the weight of lost things. This sack is your toolbox, your bank vault, and your constant companion. You open the door of your room and step out onto the landing. The stairs creak under your weight, a long, drawn-out groan of old timber that echoes in the quiet stairwell. You descend slowly, one hand on the banister, feeling the grain of the wood under your fingertips. Stepping out onto the street, the air hits you properly. It is moist and clings to your skin, dampening your eyelashes instantly. The gas lamps are still lit, flickering weakly inside their glass housings, fighting a losing battle against the fog. They cast glowing halos of amber light that struggle to penetrate more than a few feet into the gloom. You walk through these pools of light, your boots striking the pavement with a dull, rhythmic thud. The sound is absorbed by the mist, making you feel as though you are walking inside a padded room. The city is slowly waking up, but the streets are still yours. You pass a row of terraced houses, their windows dark, their occupants still lost in warm dreams. A cat, black and sleek, sits on a doorstep, watching you with green, unblinking eyes as you pass. It does not move, and you do not stop. You are both creatures of the gray hours, acknowledging each other's presence in the solitude. You turn a corner, and the air changes. The smell of coal smoke and wet stone gives way to something sharper, more organic. It is the smell of the river. It is a complex bouquet of salt, rotting wood, wet clay, and the waste of a metropolis. To an outsider, it might be repulsive, a stench to hold one's nose against. But to you, it is simply the smell of the office, the scent of opportunity. It smells of the tides. Historians still argue whether the olfactory landscape of Victorian London was the primary driver for sanitation reform, or if it was merely the fear of miasma, the bad air itself, that spurred the engineers into action. For you, the air is just air. It is heavy, rich, and tells you exactly where you are. You are approaching the Thames. The buildings here are taller, warehouses that loom out of the fog like cliff faces, their brick facades dark with soot. You can hear the water now, the relentless lap, lap, lap against the pilings of the wharves. It is a rhythmic, soothing sound, the heartbeat of the city. You reach the top of the stairs that lead down to the foreshore. These are not grand stairs, they are narrow, slippery stone steps cut into the embankment wall, slick with green algae and the slime left by the high tide. You pause at the top of the stairs, looking out into the void. You cannot see the other side of the river. The fog has erased the south bank entirely. There is only the gray water swirling below, moving fast, carrying twigs and debris towards the sea. The tide is going out. This is the crucial moment. The river is revealing its bed, pulling back the liquid curtain to show the stage where you will perform your daily work. The water level has dropped several feet already, exposing a strip of dark, glistening mud along the edge. You begin the descent. You take the first step carefully, placing your boot sideways to catch the grip on the worn stone. You shift your weight, testing the friction, before lowering your other foot. It is a slow, deliberate dance. To rush here is to fall, and to fall is to slide into the dark water or to bruise yourself on the unforgiving stone. You count the steps in your head as you go down. 1, 2, 3. The air gets colder as you descend, the dampness rising up from the river to meet you. At the bottom of the stairs, the stone ends and the mud begins. You step off the last solid block of civilization and onto the foreshore. The ground beneath your boots is soft, yielding slightly under your weight. It makes a squelching sound, a wet suction noise as you lift your foot again. This is the domain of the mudlark. You stand there for a moment, adjusting your eyes to the gloom. The light is flat and shadowless, filtering down through the fog in a diffuse gray wash. The river is wide here, a vast expanse of moving gray steel. The water is choppy, stirred by the wind and the current. Small waves slap against the mud a few feet away from your boots. You look down at the ground. It is a chaotic mosaic of stones, bricks, and unidentifiable shapes coated in a uniform layer of silt. Everything is brown or gray or black. To the untrained eye, it looks like a wasteland of rubbish. But you do not have an untrained eye. You have the eyes of a hawk that has learned to hunt in the twilight. You scan the immediate area, looking for anomalies. You are looking for straight lines in a world of curves, for shine in a world of matte, for color in a world of monochrome. You take a deep breath, inhaling the cold, earthy scent of the riverbed. The tide is still receding, the water line creeping backwards inch by inch, revealing new treasures that have been hidden for the last 12 hours. You start to walk along the shoreline, heading east. Your pace is incredibly slow. You do not stride, you shuffle. You keep your head down, your chin almost touching your chest, your eyes sweeping the ground in a constant, oscillating arc. Left to right, right to left. You focus on a patch of gravel, scanning every pebble. Then you move your gaze a foot forward and repeat the process. It is a meditative state, a trance induced by the repetition of looking. The fog muffles the sounds of the city above. You can hear the distant clatter of hooves on the bridge overhead, but it feels disconnected from your reality, like a memory of a sound rather than the sound itself. Down here, the dominant sounds are the water and your own breathing. In, out, the rhythmic squelch of your boots. The occasional cry of a gull, unseen in the mist, sounding lonely and sharp. You spot something, a flash of white against the dark mud. You stop instantly, your body freezing in mid-motion. You crouch down, bending your knees slowly to bring your face closer to the ground. You reach out a hand, your fingers red from the cold, and brush away a layer of silt. It is a piece of pottery. Just a shard, triangular in shape, with a blue pattern painted on it. You pick it up, feeling the cold, smooth glaze against your thumb. You rub the mud off it, revealing a tiny segment of a landscape, a willow tree, perhaps, or a bridge. It is a piece of a plate that might have been dropped from a ship, or thrown from a window, or washed out of a drain. It is broken, useless to most, but to you it is a sign. Where there is one piece, there are often more. It tells you that the river has deposited things here, that the currents swirl in a way that catches heavy objects. You toss the shard back onto the mud. It is not worth keeping. You are not looking for pretty trash. You are looking for value. But the find encourages you. You stand up again, wiping your hand on your trousers, and continue your slow walk. The river is vast, stretching out into the fog, and you are a tiny speck moving along its edge. The cold is seeping through your boots now. You wiggle your toes, trying to keep the circulation going. The mud is treacherous. In some places, it is firm, packed down by the tides and mixed with gravel. In others, it is soft and deep, ready to swallow your foot up to the ankle if you are not careful. You have learned to read the surface, to spot the subtle differences in texture that indicate a soft patch. You look for the sheen of water sitting on top of the mud, a warning sign of instability. You step around a patch of black, oozing silt, choosing a path of broken bricks instead. As you walk, you think about the river. The Thames is the main artery of the world's greatest city. It brings in tea from India, sugar from the Caribbean, timber from Norway, and coal from the north. Every ship that sails up this river is laden with goods, and every ship is a potential source of income for you. Things fall overboard. Ropes snap. Crates splinter. Sailors drop coins, tokens. The river takes it all, swallowing it into its murky depths, tumbling it over and over in the dark, and then, eventually, spitting it out onto the mud for you to find. The fog begins to thin slightly, or perhaps your eyes are just adjusting further. You can see the outline of a barge moored 100 yards out, a dark, hulking shape resting on the water. It sits low, heavy with cargo. You wonder what is inside. Coal, grain, bricks. You watch it for a moment, seeing if there is any movement on deck, but it is still. The crew is likely asleep or warming themselves by a stove in the cabin. You feel a pang of envy for that warmth, but you push it away. Warmth does not fill the canvas sack. You continue walking, your boots crunching on a patch of oyster shells. They are everywhere, millions of them, the remnants of cheap meals eaten by Londoners for centuries. They are the plastic of the Victorian age, discarding and indestructible, paving the foreshore in a layer of white, calcium-rich debris. You kick a shell aside, watching it skid across the mud. Underneath it, you see something dull and metallic. You stoop down again. This time, your heart beats a little faster. You dig your fingers into the mud, prying the object loose. It comes away with a sucking sound. It is heavy. You wipe it on your coat. It is a nail. A copper nail, green with verdigris but solid. Copper is good. Copper pays. You slip the nail into your pocket, not the sack. The small, valuable things stay close to your body. The sack is for the bulk, for the coal and the rope and the iron. The nail is a good start. It is a promise that the river is feeling generous today. You look up from your find and gaze down the shoreline. The tide has receded further, revealing more mud, more stones, more potential. The gray dawn is slowly brightening, turning from charcoal to a lighter, pearlescent slate. The city is waking up above you, the noise of the streets growing louder, a hum of industry and life. But down here, in the shadow of the embankment, it is just you, the mud, and the river. You take a deep breath of the cold, damp air, feeling it fill your lungs. You adjust the strap of the canvas bag on your shoulder. You take another step, and then another. The rhythm returns. Step, scan, step, scan. The hunt has begun, and the day stretches out before you. as long and as grey as the river itself. You are a mudlark, and this is your kingdom, the glorious muddy, freezing kingdom where trash is treasure and patience is the only currency that matters. You walk on, the fog swirling around your ankles, disappearing into the grey dawn on the River Thames. You are not the only ghost haunting this grey edge of the world. As the fog shifts, rolling in slow, heavy waves across the water, it momentarily lifts to reveal that the solitude you felt moments ago is an illusion. The riverbank is populated, though sparsely, by a cast of characters as silent and focused as yourself. You are part of a sprawling, unwritten ecosystem, a complex social hierarchy determined not by bloodlines or bank accounts, but by the depth of the water and the willingness to descend into the filth. You pause in your walking, standing perfectly still next to a barnacle-encrusted piling, and you watch the others. Understanding your place in this pecking order is not just a matter of pride, it is a matter of survival. To your left, near the gaping brick mouth of a storm drain, you see a figure that commands a strange mix of fear and respect. This is a Tosher. He does not scour the open mud like you. His domain is the dark, subterranean labyrinth beneath the city streets, the sewers. He has just emerged from that black tunnel, blinking against the relative brightness of the grey dawn. You can tell what he is by his silhouette. He wears a long, heavy coat with deep pockets, likely canvas or wool soaked in grease to repel the water. On his chest, strapped tightly, is a bull's-eye lantern, currently dark, but which serves as his only sun in the underground world. He holds a long pole, a tool as essential to him as the sack is to you. It is a hoe-shaped iron rod, used to test the depth of the sludge, to hook valuable items, and, rumor has it, to fight off the colonies of rats that rule the tunnels. You keep your distance. The Toshers are the aristocracy of the scavengers, often earning in a week what you might scrape together in a month. They find the coins dropped through grates, the silverware flushed away by careless scullery maids, and the copper sheeting stripped from the underside of the city. But the price they pay is etched into their posture. He stands with a slight stoop, a permanent crouch learned from hours spent in low tunnels. The smell that wafts off him, even at this distance, is sharper and more pungent than the general river funk. It is the smell of confined decay. Historians still argue whether the Toshers were a disorganized band of desperate loners or a highly structured guild with strict territorial boundaries and secret codes. To you, watching him wipe the slime from his boots, he looks like a man who answers to no one, a king of a kingdom no one else wants to enter. He catches your eye, a brief, hard stare from under the brim of a battered hat, and then turns away, heading up the embankment toward the streets. He has finished his shift, while yours is just beginning. You let out a breath you didn't realize you were holding. It is better not to cross paths with the sewer hunters. They are a hard breed, hardened by darkness and the constant threat of being swept away by a sudden flush of storm water. You turn your gaze toward the water. Out on the river, drifting silently through the mist, is a small, flat-bottomed boat. This is the domain of the Dredgermen. If the Tosher rules the underground and you scrape the surface, the Dredgerman rules the deep. He is rowing slowly, the oars dipping into the water with barely a splash, a practiced, silent stroke designed not to disturb the surface. He is not looking at you. His eyes are fixed on the water, scanning the currents. The Dredgermen are the silent sentinels of the Thames. They fish for coal dropped from the barges, using heavy nets and dredges to scrape the riverbed far below the low tide mark. But coal is just the steady income. The real prize, the grim lottery ticket, is what they call floaters. You know what that means without having to say the word. The river is a graveyard, and the Dredgerman is the undertaker. A body found and returned to the authorities, or a grieving family commands a finder's fee, a sum significant enough to feed a family for weeks. There is a dark folklore surrounding them, whispered among the mudlarks. Some say that if a Dredgerman sees a drowning man, he might wait a moment too long before extending an oar, calculating that a body is worth more than a rescue. It is likely just a story, a way to make sense of the grim reality of the river, but it makes you shiver nonetheless. You watch the boat glide past, a shadow on the steel, grey water. The Dredgerman wears oilskins, stiff and yellowing, that crackle softly as he moves. He is distinct from you, separated by the barrier of the water. You are a creature of the land, however wet. He is a creature of the river itself. You do not wave. There is no camaraderie between the shoreline and the boat. You are competitors for the same finite resources, separated only by the reach of the tide. You look back to the mud in front of you. You are a mudlark. The term itself feels heavy, earthy. You are the infantry of this scavenging army. But even within your own ranks, there are divisions, subtle stratifications based on age, strength, and desperation. Further down the beach, you see a group of children, no older than 6 or 7. They are the scran bags, the lowest of the low. They scuttle across the mud like crabs, barefoot and shivering, their trousers rolled up to their bonny knees. They do not have the patience or the eye for the valuable items yet. They collect the obvious, bits of coal, wood chips, anything that can be burned. They move in a pack for safety, their high-pitched voices carried away by the wind. You are above them, literally and metaphorically. You have the experience to look for the small things, the copper nails, the coins, the tokens. You are a hunter, rather than a gatherer. You see an old woman nearby, bent double at the waist, her face nearly touching the mud. She is a bone picker. She ignores the metal and the coal, focusing entirely on finding animal bones washed out from the slaughterhouses and butcher shops. She collects them to sell to the glue factories and fertilizer plants. It is a specialized, smelly trade. Her sack is lumpy and clatters when she moves. You respect her focus, even if you do not envy her cargo. Then there are the pure finders. You scan the shoreline but do not see one today. They are perhaps the most wretched of all, yet strangely essential. They collect dog dung, pure, to sell to the tanneries of Bermondsey, where it is used to cure leather. The irony of the name is not lost on anyone. They carry buckets rather than sacks, and they are given a wide berth by everyone, even the Toshers. The social ladder of the river bottom is slippery, but at least you are not at that particular rung. You deal in metal and glass, materials that can be wiped clean. You adjust your own sack, feeling the reassurance of its empty weight. You are a generalist, a classic mudlark. You are free to take whatever the river offers. This freedom is your only luxury. You do not have a boss. You do not have a shift whistle. You are not a lighterman or a stevedore, the legitimate workers who labor on the docks above you. You can hear them now, the heavy thump of crates being loaded, the shouting of foremen, the clanking of chains. They look down on you, literally from the high wharves, as a nuisance, a rat scrambling for crumbs. To them, you are a trespasser, a thief stealing the city's refuse. You walk under the shadow of a bridge, perhaps Blackfriars or Waterloo. The world changes instantly. The light is cut off, replaced by a deep, dripping gloom. The air is colder here, trapped between the massive stone arches. The sounds of the city are amplified, echoing off the water and the stone ceiling, creating a hollow, booming cacophony. A train rattles overhead, a thunderous roar that shakes the ground beneath your feet and sends a shower of dust drifting down. In this semi-darkness, you see another figure. It is a man standing knee-deep in the water, prying at the wood of an old jetty with a crowbar. He is stealing the wood itself, tearing apart the infrastructure of the river. This is risky. If the river police catch him, it is prison, possibly transportation. You keep your head down and walk faster. There is an unspoken code. You see nothing. You are invisible to him, and he is invisible to you. In the hierarchy of the river, the desperate thief is a wild card, unpredictable and dangerous. You stick to the detritus, the things that have already been lost. Emerging from the shadow of the bridge, the light feels blindingly bright for a moment, though it is still just a dull gray morning. The fog is lifting slightly, revealing the skeleton of the city. You see the dome of St. Paul's Cathedral rising in the distance, a pale ghost floating above the smog. It represents a world so far removed from yours that it might as well be on another planet. The people who worship there, who walk those clean stone floors, will never know the texture of the river mud. They will never know the weight of a sack of wet coal. You look at your hands. They are red and raw, the dirt ingrained so deeply into the skin that it looks like a tattoo. These are the hands of your caste. The Dredgerman has calluses on his palms from the oars. The Tosher has scars from the rats. You have the mud itself, dyed into your fingertips. You rub your thumb against your forefinger, feeling the grit. It is a tactile reminder of who you are. You continue your patrol, moving into a patch of shingle. The walking is harder here, the stones shifting under your boots, threatening to twist an ankle. You see a glint of green glass, a bottle bottom. You ignore it. Glass is heavy and worth little unless it is whole. You are refining your filter. In the hierarchy of objects, glass is low. Iron is better. Copper is king. Silver is a myth, a legend you tell yourself to keep moving. A wave from a passing steam tug washes up the beach, foaming brown water licking at your boots. You step back nimbly. The river is constantly trying to reclaim its territory. You are an intruder here, tolerated but never welcomed. The water level is your clock. When the tide turns, your shift ends. The hierarchy dissolves when the water rises. The Tosher retreats to the streets. The Dredgermen rows for the dock, and you climb the stairs back to the city. But for now, the tide is out, and the court is in session. You pass a group of shore workers, men repairing a barge that has been beached for maintenance. They are heating tar in a cauldron, the black smoke curling up into the mist. The smell of hot tar is pleasant, sharp and clean compared to the sewer outfall. They ignore you completely. You are part of the scenery, like the gulls or the driftwood. This invisibility is your armor. If they noticed you, they might chase you off. shouting that you are too close to their tools. Being a mudlark means being present, but unseen, a phantom occupying the negative space of the city. You pause to look at a large timber beam, half buried in the mud. It is huge, perhaps a part of an old ship or a collapsed wharf. It is too heavy to move, too waterlogged to burn. It sits there, a monument to decay. You run your hand along the slimy wood. It is slick with algae. In the cracks, you see tiny crabs scuttling away. Even the smallest creatures have their own hierarchy, their own battles for territory. You are just a giant in their world, a force of nature that disrupts their peace. You realize that despite the other people on the shore, the Toshers, the children, the bone pickers, you are essentially alone. The hierarchy does not mean community. There is no guild hall for mudlarks, no benevolent society to take care of you when you are sick. You are an independent contractor of the tides. If you do not find, you do not eat. This simple economic truth drives every step you take. The fog begins to swirl again, closing in, shrinking your world back down to a few yards of visibility. The other scavengers disappear into the mist, becoming ghosts once more. The Dredgerman is gone, swallowed by the gray. The children's voices fade. It is just you again. You prefer it this way. Competition breeds anxiety. Solitude brings focus. You spot a shape in the mud that looks promising. It is rectangular, metallic, caked in rust. You crouch down, your knees cracking. You reach out. This is the moment of interaction, where the hierarchy of the living meets the archaeology of the dead. You are the conduit between the river's bed and the city's furnaces. You pick up the object. It is an old iron hinge, heavy and solid. It goes into the sack. A good find. Iron adds up. You stand and adjust your scarf. The dampness is seeping through your layers, a persistent chill that gnaws at your ribs. You look down the length of the foreshore. It stretches on, a ribbon of opportunity. You are not a Tosher, braving the rats. You are not a Dredgerman, fishing for death. You are a mudlark. You walk the line between the land and the water, the known and the unknown. And right now, with the weight of the iron hinge bumping against your hip, that is enough. You take another step, your boots sinking slightly, leaving a footprint that the incoming tide will erase in a few hours, wiping the record of your existence clean. The river does not offer you a workspace. It offers you an opponent. As you continue your slow, stooped procession along the foreshore, the reality of your profession settles into your extremities. The romance of the morning mist has evaporated, leaving behind the physics of the trade, which are governed entirely by friction, temperature, and gravity. You are a manual laborer, but your factory floor is a shifting, sucking bed of silt, and your machinery is composed entirely of your own body and a few scavenged scraps. You pause to adjust your primary asset, the canvas sack. It is slung across your chest bandolier style, the strap digging into the groove between your neck and shoulder. The strap is not padded. It is a strip of rough, woven hemp that acts like a slow, moving saw against your coat. You shift the weight, hitching the bag higher up your back to relieve the pressure for a few fleeting seconds. The bag itself is a map of your history. It is stained with the ghosts of 1,000 tides. Dark patches of oil, reddish smears of rust, and the pervasive, stiff gray of dried clay. It smells of wet dog and stagnant water. It is heavy, even when empty, because the dampness lives inside the fibers, weighing it down. You look at your hands. They are dangling at your sides, swollen and red. In the Victorian hierarchy of tools, the human hand is the cheapest and most versatile instrument available. You do not wear gloves. Gloves cost money, and even if you had them, they would be useless here. Leather would stiffen and crack in the wet. Wool would become a sodden, heavy sponge that sucked the heat from your fingers rather than preserving it. So, you work bare-handed. Your skin is the interface between you and the history buried in the mud. You flex your fingers. They move slowly, the joints stiff and protesting. The cold down here is not just an ambient temperature. It is an aggressive force. It gnaws at your knuckles. You bring your hands up to your mouth and blow into the cupped palms. The breath is warm, a brief cloud of steam that offers a momentary respite, a fleeting sensation of life returning to the frozen flesh. But as soon as you stop, the chill clamps back down, tighter than before. You look down at the ground. To the uninitiated, the mud is just mud. To you, it is a complex geological layer cake that requires specific techniques to navigate. You are currently standing on hard scour, a section of the beach where the current is fast enough to strip away the top layer of silt, leaving behind a bed of packed gravel, stones, and larger debris. This is good hunting ground for heavy items. You do not just bend and grab. That is the amateur's way, the way of the children who tire within an hour. You have a method. You carry a tool, though it is not something you bought at a hardware monger's shop. It is a piece of iron rod, perhaps a foot long, rusted and slightly bent at the end. It might have once been part of a fence railing or a fire poker. Now it is your extension, your probe. You hold it loosely in your right hand. You spot a likely candidate, a flat, slate, gray stone sitting slightly proud of the gravel. It looks undisturbed, which is good. It means no one else has checked under it. You do not use your fingers yet. You slide the tip of the iron rod under the edge of the stone. You apply a gentle leverage. The stone resists, held down by the suction of the wet sand beneath. You push harder. With a wet schluck sound, the seal breaks, and you flip the stone over. Underneath, the gravel is blacker, untouched by the air. You lean in, nothing. Just a few confused sandhoppers jumping away from the sudden light. You let the stone fall back. This is the rhythm: step, probe, flip, scan. It saves your back, and more importantly, it saves your fingertips from the razor, sharp edges of broken flint, and shattered glass that litter the beach. Historians still argue whether the most successful mudlarks employed customized rakes and sieves similar to the archaeologists of today, or if such tools were considered a hindrance to the speed and stealth required to dodge the river police. For you, simplicity is key. A sieve is too bulky. A rake attracts attention. A rusty piece of iron is just trash in your hand until you use it. It makes you invisible. You move from the hard scour into a patch of slub, the deceptive, silky mud that looks solid but is actually a deep, viscous paste. You test the ground with your boot. It sinks an inch, then holds. Safe enough. Here, the technique changes. You cannot flip stones because there are none. Here, you must feel. You see a depression in the mud, a small crater where the water has pooled. You suspect something heavy might have settled there. You crouch down. The iron rod is useless here. It would just slice through the sludge. You have to go in. You take a breath, bracing yourself, and plunge your hand into the mud. The shock is instant. The mud is colder than the air, colder than the river water. It grips your hand like a vice, sucking tight around your wrist. It feels slimy and granular at the same time. You wiggle your fingers blindly beneath the surface, your sense of touch dulled by the cold, but still searching for texture. You are looking for the unnatural smoothness of metal or the distinct hardness of coin. Your index finger brushes against something jagged. You flinch, pulling your hand back instinctively. You bring your hand up to your face, inspecting the damage. A thin line of red is welling up on the side of your thumb. A shard of broken bottle glass hidden in the muck. You do not panic. You do not cry out. You simply wipe the blood away on your trousers. The cold acts as an anesthetic. You barely feel the cut. It is just another stripe of red to mix with the gray and black on your skin. Mudlark's hands are never whole. They are a patchwork of micro-abrasions, calluses, and healing scabs. You suck the wound for a second. The metallic taste of blood mixing with the salty tang of the river. And then you go back to work. You reach back into the same hole, more carefully this time. You find the glass shard and toss it aside, a public service for the next lark. You delve deeper. Your fingertips brush something round. You hook it and pull. The suction fights you, the mud not wanting to give up its prize. You pull your hand free with a squelch. In your palm sits a button. It is made of bone with 4 holes. It is not valuable, not really. Maybe a fraction of a penny if you find 100 of them. But it is a keeper. You drop it into your pocket. The act of finding it releases a tiny dopamine hit, a small chemical reward that combats the misery of the cold. It keeps you moving. Your feet are beginning to suffer. The leather of your boots is old, the stitching fraying at the seams. The water has found a way in. You can feel the dampness inside your socks, a cold, wet seep that starts at the toes and works its way back to the heel. Your feet feel heavy, like blocks of ice attached to your ankles. You wiggle your toes constantly, a subconscious tick to ensure they are still there. The fear of trench foot, though the term hasn't been coined yet in the trenches of a future war, is real. You know old mudlarks who have lost toes to the damp and the frost. You walk toward a section of the bank where a sewer outlet flows into the river. The smell hits you first. A sulfuric, rotten egg stench that makes your eyes water. But you do not turn away. You walk towards it. Why? Because the sewer is warm. The water flowing out of the city's bowels is heated by the wash water of thousands of homes. The runoff from breweries and tanneries. Steam rises from the outflow, a foul mist. You stand near the edge of the flow, careful not to touch the water itself, which is brown and frothy. You just stand in the steam. It wraps around you, smelling of decay, but it carries a blessed heat. You hold your hands out into the vapor, letting the warmth penetrate your stiff fingers. It is a grotesque spa treatment, standing in the miasma of London's waste to defrost your limbs. As your hands warm up, the pain arrives. The hot itch. It starts as a throb, deep in the bone, then blooms into a burning, stinging sensation that makes you want to gasp. It is the blood rushing back into the constricted capillaries. It hurts more than the freezing did. You grit your teeth and endure it, flexing your fingers through the agony. You need the dexterity. Numb hands drop coins. Numb hands cannot tell the difference between a lump of coal and a lump of iron. You pay for your sensitivity with pain. Once the hotash subsides to a dull throb, you move away from the sewer. The warmth was a temporary luxury. The smell clings to your coat now, a new layer of camouflage. You head back to the waterline. The tide has turned. It is at its absolute lowest point. The dead low. This is the golden hour. The water is slack, neither coming nor going, and the maximum amount of riverbed is exposed. You find yourself in a patch of clay, blue, grey London clay, dense and sticky. This is the stuff the city is built on, the stuff the bricks are made of. It is slippery as ice. You have to walk with your knees bent, your center of gravity low, to avoid sliding. If you fall here, you will be coated in a layer of clay that dries like plaster and adds 5 pounds to your weight. You see a piece of wood sticking out of the clay. It looks like a rib. You use your iron rod to dig around it. The clay is heavy. It comes up in thick, cohesive chunks. You are sculpting the riverbed. You uncover the object. It is a rib, but not a human one. It is part of a ship's hull, old oak, black as jet. It is too big to take. But as you dig, you expose the soil around it, and there, gleaming dully against the blue clay, is a pipe, a clay tobacco pipe. It is small, delicate, with a long, thin stem and a small bowl. These are the cigarette butts of the past, disposable items bought for a penny, smoked once and discarded. The river is full of them. Most are broken, stems snapped, bowls shattered. But this one, you reach out with your revitalized fingers. You gently pry it from the clay matrix. It comes out whole. This is rare, a complete pipe with a stem as long as your hand. You wipe the clay from the bowl. It has a tiny maker's mark stamped on the heel, maybe a WG or a TD. You hold it up to the gray light. It is fragile, a miracle that it survived the crushing weight of the tides and the barges. You treat it with reverence. You cannot just throw this in the sack. The heavy iron would crush it. You reach into the lining of your coat. There is a special pocket there, stitched by your own hand, lined with a scrap of soft flannel. This is the safe. It is for the delicates. You slide the pipe in, feeling the stem glide against the fabric. A whole pipe can be sold to a curiosities shop or a pub landlord for a few pennies. It is a good find. It justifies the frozen toes. You stand up and stretch your back. Your spine cracks audibly. The posture of the mudlark is a permanent question mark, always curving towards the ground. You look out at the river. A police galley is rowing past, 4 oarsmen pulling in perfect unison. They are the predators of the river, looking for thieves, looking for trouble. You freeze. You become a statue. You do not look at them directly. You look at the mud. If you look like you are working, like you are just part of the landscape, they usually ignore you. They are looking for the river pirates, who board ships at night, not the scavengers who pick up the scraps by day. The galley passes. You exhale. The tension leaves your shoulders, but the cold rushes back in to fill the void. You are thirsty. Your throat is dry, coated with the salt spray, but you cannot drink the river water. That is death, cholera, typhoid, dysentery. They all live in that gray swirl. You have to wait. You have to endure the thirst just as you endure the cold. You look at your tool, the iron rod. It is caked in clay. You wipe it on your trousers. It is shining slightly where the friction of the sand has polished the rust away. It is becoming smoother, just as you are becoming harder. The tool shapes the user. Your hand has molded to the grip of the metal. You scan the ground again. Your eyes are watering from the wind, blurring your vision. You blink rapidly to clear them. You see a shape. A square. A brick? No, too smooth. You move closer. You prod it with the rod. It flips over. It is a tile. A blue and white delft tile, or a piece of one. It shows a windmill. It is clean, the glaze resisting the grime of the river. You pick it up. The edges are tumbled smooth by the water. Sharp corners turned into soft curves. It feels like a worry stone in your hand. You run your thumb over the cool, glassy surface. It is a fragment of someone's fireplace, a piece of a home that fell into the water 100 years ago. You drop it into the sack. It lands with a clack against the iron hinge you found earlier. The sound is satisfying. The sack is growing. It is no longer a limp piece of fabric. It has form, it has mass. It bumps against your hip as you walk, a rhythmic reminder of your progress. The wind picks up, blowing down the channel of the river. It cuts through your jacket, through your waistcoat, through your shirt. It finds the gaps. You hunch your shoulders, trying to make yourself smaller, to present less surface area to the wind. You turn your back to the breeze and walk sideways for a while, crab-like. You see a patch of red in the mud. Bright red. It looks alarming. You investigate. It is thousands of tiny red worms, bloodworms, writhing in the silt. They live in the oxygen, poor mud, feeding on the decay. They are a carpet of life in the dead zone. You step around them. You don't want them on your boots. There is a fringe theory among the river folk that the worms can burrow through leather, though you've never seen it happen. It's just another story to keep you vigilant. Your fingernails are black, not just dirty, but stained deep into the keratin. You will scrub them tonight with a stiff brush and coarse soap, but the gray line will remain. It is the mark of the Thames. It marks you out in a crowd. If you went into a fine shop on the Strand, the clerk would look at your hands and know exactly where you have been. You are branded by the river. You reach a section of the bank where the mud is mixed with cinders. Unburnt coal dumped from the steamships. This is black gold. It is not valuable individually, but it is fuel. You can burn it. You can sell it to the poor, who cannot afford the coal merchant's prices. You stop hunting for treasures and start gathering. You use both hands now, scooping the black granules into your bag. It is cold, wet work. The coal dust mixes with the water to form a black paste that coats your arms up to the elbows. Scoop, lift, drop. Scoop, lift, drop. The rhythm takes over. You stop thinking about the cold. You stop thinking about your feet. You become a machine. The sack gets heavier. The weight is good. The weight is heat. The exertion warms your blood. This is the trade. Off you can be warm if you work hard enough, but you have to carry the weight. You fill the sack until it is a comfortable burden, enough to justify the trip, but not enough to break your back. You stand up, wiping your black hands on your black trousers. You are a shadow now, covered in the city's exhaust. You look down the river. The fog is beginning to thin in earnest now, burned off by the invisible sun, rising somewhere above the cloud layer. The light is changing from flat gray to a brighter, harsher white. The mystery is fading, replaced by the stark reality of the industrial river. You can see the grime on the warehouse walls, the rust on the crane chains. You touch the pocket with the clay pipe again, just to make sure it is safe. You feel the iron rod in your hand. You feel the throb of the cut on your thumb. These are your sensations. This is your world. It is a world of sharp edges and freezing temperatures, of mud that wants to hold you and water that wants to take you. But you are still here. You are the operator of the foreshore, the technician of the tide. You adjust the heavy strap on your shoulder, gritting your teeth against the bite of the hemp, and you take the next step. The tools are simple, but the master is skilled. You walk on, frozen fingers seeking the next piece of history in the mud. The romance of the rare find, the delicate pipe, the silver coin, the unbroken bottle, is a fine thing to keep your mind occupied, but it is not what fills the belly. As the morning grinds on, and the grey light of dawn hardens into the flat, colourless illumination of a cloudy Victorian day, you shift your focus from the lottery of treasures to the certainty of commodities. You stop looking for the exceptional and start looking for the inevitable. You are no longer a treasure hunter, you are a resource gatherer. The river is a conveyor belt of fuel and raw materials, and your job is to catch what falls off the edge. You adjust the strap of your sack again. It has settled into a permanent groove on your shoulder, a dull ache that pulses in time with your heartbeat. You step away from the clay banks where the fragile things hide and move towards the barge beds. These are the flat, muddy stretches where the great flat-bottomed lighters, the barges that ferry goods from the deep water ships to the wharves, are beached at low tide to be unloaded. The ground here is different. It is not smooth mud, it is a chaotic, crunching carpet of industrial debris. It is black. The dominant color of London is not the red of the brick or the white of the stone, but the black of the coal. It is the lifeblood of the empire, the frozen energy that powers the steam engines, the factories, and the millions of hearths that fight back the damp chill of the English climate. And it is everywhere. You look down at your boots. They are standing on a fortune, scattered in pennies and half-pennies. Small nuggets of coal, known as sea coal, because it arrives by ship from Newcastle, litter the foreshore like black hail. To the casual observer walking across the bridge, this is just dirt. To you, it is heat. It is a warm room. It is a cooked meal. You begin the harvest. You do not use the iron rod for this. You use your hands. You squat down, your knees popping with the movement, and you start to scoop. You are looking for the nubbles, chunks the size of a fist or an egg. The dust is useless to you. It falls through the weave of your sack and ruins your clothes. You want the solid lumps. The coal is wet, of course. It is slick with river water, gleaming with a false, glassy shine. It feels light in your hand compared to stone, a dense, brittle lightness. You pick up a piece, turning it over. It facets the light, black and glittering. You toss it into the sack. It lands with a soft thud against the canvas. You pick up another, and another. It is repetitive work, a mesmerizing, back-breaking rhythm. Crouch, grab, toss. Crouch, grab, toss. Above you, the wooden hull of a beached barge looms like a wall. It smells of tar and wet timber. You can hear the crew moving about on the deck, feet thumping on the planks, heavy chains rattling. They are unloading the cargo, swinging great baskets of coal from the hold to the wharf. Every time a basket swings, a few pieces tumble out. They fall 20 feet, hitting the mud with a splat or bouncing off the timber pilings. This is your manna from heaven. Historians still argue whether the substantial amount of coal found on the foreshore was the result of accidental spillage during the frenetic offloading process, or a systematic, illicit, sweepings economy orchestrated by the lightermen themselves to support the scavenger class in exchange for silence or small favors. To you, the intent does not matter. The physics of gravity is the only law that counts. What falls is yours. You work methodically, clearing a small circle around your feet before taking a step forward. You are competing with the tide now in a different way. The coal is heavy. As your sack fills, your mobility decreases. You become slower, more deliberate. You cannot skip over the mud. You have to trudge. You are becoming a barge yourself, laden with cargo. You find a particularly large lump, the size of a loaf of bread. This is a prize. It must have fallen just minutes ago. You wipe the mud from it. It is Walsand, coal. The high-quality stuff that burns hot and bright with very little ash. This single lump could keep a small grate burning for an hour. You feel a genuine flash of gratitude towards the clumsy stevedore who dropped it. You carefully place it at the bottom of the sack to anchor the load. But coal is just the base layer. It is the ballast. You are looking for something else among the black nuggets, something with a higher value to weight ratio. You are looking for the glint of green. In the monochrome world of the mudlark, color is the primary signal. Red is usually rust or brick. White is bone or pipe clay. But green, specifically the pale, powdery green of verdigris, means copper. And copper is the king of the scrap metals. You scan the area under the hull of the barge. Ships are held together with iron, but they are sheathed and fastened in critical places with copper. Iron rusts and rots in the salt water, copper endures. It fights the barnacles and the teredo worms. You spot it, a streak of teal against the black mud. You reach out, your hand looking pale and ghostly against the dark ground. You pry the object loose. It is a nail, but not a standard carpenter's nail. It is a ship's nail, square, shanked and thick, with a broad, flat head. It is made of pure copper. It is heavy for its size, denser than the coal. You rub the green corrosion with your thumb. Underneath the verdigris, you can see the dull, reddish gold glint of the metal. This is currency. The marine store dealers, the rag and bone, men of the riverside, will pay good money for this. Copper can be melted down and reused infinitely. It is immortal metal. You slip the nail into your pocket, keeping it separate from the coal. You do not want it lost in the black dust. You continue scanning. Where there is one nail, there are often more. They come loose from the rotting timbers of old ships, or they are dropped during repairs. You find a rove. A copper washer used to rivet the nails in place. It is a small ring of green metal. Into the pocket it goes. This pursuit of copper requires a different kind of seeing. You are looking for the absence of rust. Iron bubbles and flakes as it corrodes, turning into orange scabs that crumble when you touch them. Copper stays smooth. It oxidizes, but it holds its shape. You see a long, twisted strip of metal half buried in the shingle. You pull it out. It is a strip of copper sheathing, the protective skin that once covered a ship's hull below the waterline. This is a direct link to the grand history of the British Empire. It was the introduction of copper sheathing in the late 18th century that gave the Royal Navy its speed and longevity, keeping the hulls clean of weeds and rot. You are holding a piece of naval supremacy in your frozen hand. Now, it is just scrap, crumpled and torn, likely ripped off when a ship ran aground or was broken up. You fold the metal strip. It is soft and pliable, and shove it into your sack. It sits on top of the coal, a layer of value over a layer of necessity. The wind shifts, blowing from the east now, carrying the smell of the sea up the estuary. It mixes with the coal smoke, creating a briny, sulphurous tang. You pause to wipe your nose on your sleeve. Your face feels stiff, the skin pulled tight by the cold wind. You can feel the grime settling into your pores. You are becoming part of the landscape, a statue of mud and cloth. As you scour the gravel for more copper, your eyes catch a strange shape. It is not metal nor coal, nor simple stone. It is a long, bullet-shaped object, smooth and tapering to a point, amber, colored and translucent. You pick it up. It feels like stone, but it looks like a petrified icicle. This is a thunderbolt. That is what the river folk call them. In reality, it is a belemnite, the fossilized god of an ancient, squid-like creature that swam in a prehistoric sea millions of years before London existed. They wash out of the chalk beds and the gravel. They are common, but they always feel special. They are cool to the touch and heavy. Some of the older mudlarks keep them as charms, believing they protect against rheumatism or lightning strikes. You turn it over in your fingers. It is a reminder that the river is older than the barges, older than the copper, older than the people. You are walking on a graveyard of errors. You slide the fossil into your pocket, a talisman for the long walk home. You return to the copper hunt. You find a pintle, a heavy brass or bronze pin used in a rudder hinge. It is a significant find. Brass is an alloy of copper and zinc, and it fetches a price almost as good as pure copper. This one is worn smooth by the action of the water and the turning of the rudder. It captures the energy of 1,000 journeys, 1,000 turns of the wheel. It is heavy, perhaps half a pound. You weigh it in your hand, calculating the fractions of a penny it represents. It goes into the sack. The sack is now a burden. It drags on your shoulder, pulling you down to the left. You have to walk with a list, compensating for the weight. The strap is biting harder now, compressing the layers of your coat and shirt, finding the tender skin underneath. You try to ignore it. The pain is just the sensation of earning. A light sack means a hungry night. A heavy sack means bread and perhaps a cup of gin. You welcome the pain. You are walking past a series of wooden posts driven into the mud. The remains of an old jetty. The wood is green with algae and riddled with holes from the gribble worms. You look closely at the base of the posts. The currents swirl around these obstacles, digging little scour pits in the mud. Heavy things roll into these pits and get trapped. You probe a scour pit with your iron rod. It clinks against something. You reach in. It is not copper. It is lead, a piece of lead piping, squashed flat. Lead is the heaviest of all, the dense, gray metal of plumbing and roofing. It is soft. You can mark it with your fingernail. It is not as valuable as copper by the pound, but it adds weight quickly. You heave it into the sack. The bag sags noticeably. You are carrying the city's discarded infrastructure. The monotony of the search is hypnotic. You fall into a trance state. There is no past, no future, only the next square foot of mud. The world shrinks to the circle of your vision. You stop noticing the cold. You stop noticing the smell. You are simply a machine that converts debris into survival. You pass a dead cat, swollen and waterlogged. stranded on a patch of shingle. You do not flinch. You do not look away. It is just organic matter returning to the cycle. The river takes everything eventually. It levels all hierarchies. The cat, the copper nail, the coal, the belemnite, they are all just objects on the mud, waiting to be sorted. You find a cluster of clinkers, fused lumps of ash and slag from the furnaces of steamships. They look like meteorites, bubbly and jagged. They are worthless. You kick them aside. You have to be discerning. You cannot carry everything. Your energy is finite. Every ounce you carry must pay for the calorie it costs to carry it. This is the ruthless biological economics of the mudlark. You look up for a moment to check your bearings. The fog has lifted enough that you can see the other side of the river clearly now. The south bank is a sprawl of wharves, chimneys, and shot towers. The river traffic has increased. Steam tugs chug upstream, towing strings of barges. Wherries, small water taxis, dart between the larger vessels. The river is a highway, a dangerous, churning thoroughfare. But you are on the hard shoulder. You are safe from the crushing hulls, but you have your own dangers. You step carefully over a patch of quicksand, a slurry of fine sand and water that can trap a boot. You know the signs. The surface ripples slightly even when there is no wind. You skirt around it. You spot a glint of yellow. Gold? No. Gold is a dream. It is brass. A button, perhaps. No, it is a small brass casing. A percussion cap or a cartridge. You pick it up. It is a military button, stamped with a regiment number. It is bright and shiny, polished by the sand. It might have fallen from a soldier's uniform on a troop ship, or been lost during a parade on the embankment. It is a tiny piece of martial history. Into the pocket. Your hands are completely black now. The coal dust has worked into the cracks of your skin, mixing with the river slime to form a permanent glove. You wipe your forehead, leaving a black smear across your brow. You look like a collier, like a miner who has emerged from the pit. In a way, you have. The river is an open-air mine, and you are extracting the ore. You come across a patch of slag, glassy, waste material from the glassworks or iron foundries. It is sharp and dangerous. It crunches under your boots like broken teeth. You tread carefully. A cut boot is a disaster. A cut foot is a catastrophe. You use the iron rod to turn over the slag, looking for metal trapped underneath. You find a twisted piece of wire. Copper wire. Good, it goes in the sack. The sack is now half full. It is an awkward, shifting weight. The coal grinds against the iron. The iron presses against your back. You stop to adjust the load, shaking the bag to settle the contents. The noise is a dull clatter, the sound of heavy, dead things colliding. You take a deep breath, inhaling the coal dust and the salt. You are a beast of burden. You look at the river water. It is brown and opaque, swirling with the tide. It is beginning to turn. You can see the flow slowing down, the eddies pausing. The slack water is approaching. Soon, the tide will start to flood, rushing back in to reclaim the beach. You have perhaps 2 hours left. 2 hours to turn a half, full sack into a full one. You double your efforts. You move faster, scanning with more intensity. You ignore the smaller pieces of coal now, focusing only on the large lumps and the metal. You are skimming the cream. You find another copper nail, this one bent into a hook shape. You straighten it with your fingers. Copper is soft, and pocket it. You feel a strange sense of satisfaction. It is not happiness. Happiness is too light a word for this life, but it is a sense of competence. You know what you are doing. You know the difference between iron and copper at a glance. You know where the coal accumulates. You are a master of this bleak domain. You are surviving in a city that crushes the weak, and you are doing it with nothing but your eyes and your hands. You reach a stretch of the bank that is littered with broken roofing tiles, slate and terracotta. Among them, you spot a heavy, rectangular object. It is a sash weight made of lead or iron, used to counterbalance a window. You tap it with your rod. It gives a dull thud, iron, but it is solid iron. It weighs maybe 5 pounds. You hesitate, it is heavy. It will make the walk back grueling, but it is worth a farthing on its own. You make the calculation. Pain vs. profit. Profit wins. You heave the sash weight into the sack. It lands with a heavy thump, shifting the center of gravity. You groan slightly as you straighten up. The weight anchors you to the earth. You feel solid, heavy, immovable. You are no longer just a person. You are a collection of materials. You are coal, iron, copper, lead, and bone. You are the sum of your scavenged parts. You take a step, planting your boot firmly in the mud, driving it down with the extra weight. You are leaving deep prints now. You continue along the shoreline, a solitary figure bent under a burden of trash, searching for the next piece of fuel to feed the insatiable hunger of the city. The coal is black, the copper is green, and the river is gray, and you are the thread that stitches them all together. You have gathered the fuel and the metal, the heavy necessities that keep the city warm, and the factories running. Your sack is a dead weight on your hip, a chaotic ballast of coal and iron. But as you move further downstream, where the river widens and the currents grow gentler, the nature of the debris changes. You are leaving the industrial zone and entering the domestic graveyard. The mud here is softer, less cluttered with the heavy slag of commerce, and more speckled with the broken intimacy of daily life. You are walking through the shattered kitchen of Victorian London. The ground is a mosaic of ceramics. It is as if 1,000,000 plates, teacups, saucers, and jugs have been hurled into the water in a fit of collective rage, only to be churned, tumbled, and smoothed by the river until they are returned as soft, edged puzzles. You slow your pace. You are no longer looking for the jagged silhouette of metal or the black lump of coal. You are looking for pattern, for color, for the curve of a handle or the rim of a bowl. You spot a flash of blue. It is the ubiquitous willow pattern, the standard, mass-produced blue and white transferware that graced the tables of everyone from the clerk to the costermonger. You pick up a shard. It shows 2 birds flying in the sky, the souls of the lovers from the legend, or so the story goes. The glaze is crackled, a network of tiny fissures stained dark by the river water, giving it the appearance of a spider web. You run your thumb over the break. It is worn smooth. This piece has been in the water for a long time. It is not valuable, just a fragment, but you slip it into your pocket anyway. Sometimes, the sheer volume of Cheney, as the Mudlarks call it, is currency enough for the artists and mosaic makers who buy sacks of the stuff. But you are looking for something more specific. You are looking for the storytellers. You see a small, white object protruding from the mud like a bone. You gently pry it loose. It is the bowl of a clay pipe, but unlike the plain one you found earlier, this one is sculpted. It is a face. a man with a beard and a turban. A Turk's head. These effigy pipes are common, caricatures of famous figures, exotic stereotypes, or politicians. You brush the mud from the tiny face. It stares back at you with blank, clay eyes. Who smoked this? A sailor fresh from the Levant. A dock worker dreaming of travel. The pipe is a personal object, held near the mouth, gripped in the teeth. It carries the ghost of the smoker's breath. Historians still argue whether the sheer abundance of clay pipes in the Thames, literally millions of them, is due to their fragility and disposability. Effectively the cigarette butts of the era, or if a significant number were rituals, offerings, or tossed from the bridges in moments of frustration. To you, they are simply the markers of time. The shape of the bowl tells you the decade. Small and angled, late 17th century. Larger and upright, mid-19th. You are holding a timeline in your dirty palm. This Turk's head is Victorian, likely from the 1850s. You place it in the safe pocket with the other pipe. You take a few steps and crunch on something brittle. You look down. It is the neck of a bottle. A stoneware bottle, brown and salt, glazed. It is stamped with the name of a ginger beer manufacturer in Lambeth. The rest of the bottle is gone, shattered. You kick the shard aside. Londoners drink oceans of ginger beer, gin, wine, and medicine, and the river inherits the empty vessels. You are walking on a layer of history that is usually hidden. In the city above, the streets are swept occasionally. The rubbish is carted away eventually, and the past is paved over. But here, the river preserves everything. The anaerobic mud, the deep oxygen-starved silt, stops the clock. Leather shoes from the Tudor period come out looking like they were lost yesterday. Roman coins shine as if they were just minted. You spot a gleam of iridescent glass. It is a onion bottle, base thick, dark green glass from the 1700s. It has degraded in the water, the surface turning into layers of flaky, rainbow-colored silica. It looks like a jewel, shimmering with oil, slick colors. It is beautiful, but it crumbles when you touch it. The river gives, and the river takes away. You move towards a patch of shingle where the lighter items gather. You see something that looks like a coin, but it is made of lead. You pick it up. It is a cloth seal, a round disc of lead stamped with a number and a symbol. These were clamped onto bales of wool or bolts of cloth to prove that taxes had been paid and quality checked. Once the cloth was sold, the seal was discarded. This one has the date 1645 barely visible. A relic of the Civil War era, sitting next to a Victorian ginger beer bottle. Time collapses on the foreshore. You continue your search. You are looking for frozen Charlotte dolls. These are tiny, unglazed porcelain dolls, popular as cheap toys for children. They are usually found broken. A torso here, a leg there. The river is a cruel nursery. You scan the gravel. You see a tiny white arm, the hand clenched in a fist. You pick it up. It is no bigger than a matchstick. It is eerie, this dismembered toy. You imagine the child who cried when they dropped it over the side of a bridge, or the nursemaid who swept it out with the dust. You pocket the arm. There are collectors who pay for these macabre little fragments. The wind dies down for a moment, and the air feels heavy and still. The smell of the mud is strong, a primitive, earthy scent. You feel a strange connection to the millions of people who have lived in this city. You are picking through their trash. Yes, but you are also picking through their lives. You are the curator of the accidental museum. You find a thimble, It is crushed flat, but you can see the dimples. Brass. A seamstress's tool. Did it fall from a pocket? Was it thrown away in anger after a pricked finger? It is a humble object. Speaking of long hours of work by candlelight, it goes into the sack. Then you see it. A marble. Alley. Or alabaster marble, swirled with color. It is sitting perfectly perched on a flat stone, as if waiting to be played. Marbles are a favorite find. They are the lost joys of childhood. You pick it up and roll it in your palm. It is perfectly spherical, untouched by the decay around it. It is a tiny planet of glass. You hold it up to the light. It has a core of yellow and red spirals. You smile, a rare expression on the foreshore. You pocket the marble, keeping it separate from the jagged metal. You walk past a section of the bank that is reinforced with old boat timbers. The wood is black and rotting, wedged into a crack in the timber. You see a small, rectangular object. You pry it out with your knife. It is a domino, bone face, ebony back, held together with a tiny brass pin, 6, a winning tile. Who played dominoes on the river? Sailors waiting for the tide, lightermen on a break. The game ended, the tile was lost, and now it is yours. You are assembling a college of leisure. A pipe, a marble, a domino. These are the things people used to kill time, to relax, to escape the drudgery of their lives. Now they are the tools of your survival. You find a wig curler, a small dumbbell-shaped piece of white clay. These were used in the 18th century. Men would heat them in the fire and wrap their wig hair around them to create the fashionable curls. They were disposable, thrown away by the thousands. You find them everywhere. This one is broken in half. It is a relic of vanity. You toss it back. You only keep the whole ones. The mud makes a sucking sound as you walk, a rhythmic slop slop. You are getting tired. The concentration required to spot these small items is exhausting. Your eyes are constantly darting, focusing, refocusing. You are reading the ground like a book written in a language of debris. You spot a shard of pottery that is different. It is not the blue and white transferware. It is coarser, with a green glaze and a ruffled edge. Tudor greenware, 16th century. You run your finger over the ruffle. A thumb pressed this clay 400 years ago. You are touching the fingerprint of a Tudor potter. It is a tangible link. You keep this one. It feels older, heavier with history. You are approaching a spot known for coins. It is a specific eddy in the river where the currents deposit flat, round objects. You slow down. You get on your knees. The wet cold soaks through your trousers instantly, but you don't care. This is precision work. You sift through the sand with your fingers. You find buttons, dozens of them. Shell bone, brass, glass. Buttons are the most common personal item in the river. Threads rot, buttons survive. You flick them aside unless they are metal. Then you see a dull, gray disc. It looks like a washer. You pick it up. It is heavy. You rub it with your thumb, spitting on it to clean the surface. A face emerges. A profile. Roman? No, Georgian. George III. It is a halfpenny. Worn almost smooth, the date obliterated, but unmistakable. A cartwheel. Penny, perhaps, or a standard issue. It has been in the river for a century. It has no monetary value in a shop. No baker would take this slug. But to a collector, or as scrap copper, it has worth. You have found money, actual money. It is a visceral thrill. You continue sifting. You find a token. A farthing token. Issued by a local merchant in the 17th century, because the crown didn't mint enough small change. It says ATTCGNOFTBL and has a picture of a bell. It is a localized currency, valid only in one shop 300 years ago. It is useless now, yet priceless as a story. You stand up, your knees cracking. You have a pocketful of fragments. A marble, a pipe, a domino, a coin, a token. You are carrying a pocket museum. You look at the river. It is indifferent to these treasures. It washes over a Roman brooch with the same apathy it washes over a plastic comb. It is the great equalizer. You see a piece of leather sticking out of the mud. You pull it. It is a shoe. A whole shoe. It is small, a child's boot. It is incredibly preserved, the leather black and supple, the stitching intact. It looks like it could be worn today, if you didn't mind the smell. It is a soles and heels. Find. You check the sole. It is hobnailed, studded with iron nails for durability. This was a poor child's shoe, built to last. Where is the other one? Where is the child? The shoe is a poignant, empty vessel. You leave it. Leather is hard to sell, hard to preserve. It will dry out and crumble as soon as it leaves the river. It belongs to the mud. You walk on. You find a pot lid. A ceramic lid from a jar of toothpaste or bear grease. It has a black transfer print on it, a picture of a bear, or a portrait of Queen Victoria. These are highly collectible. This one is for areca nut toothpaste. It is pristine. The glaze is glossy. It looks like it came from the chemist's shelf yesterday. You carefully clean it and wrap it in a rag before putting it in the safe pocket. The variety of things is endless. A brass buckle, a rusted key, what door did it open? A piece of a comb, a glass bead. Every step reveals a new object, a new mystery. You are reading the autobiography of London, written in trash. You pause to look at a large, flat stone. On it another mudlark, perhaps years ago, has scratched a message, J.M., 1882. Graffiti on the riverbed, a mark of existence. You wonder who J.M. was, a boy like you. Did he find his fortune? Or did he just find cold and wet? You will never know. You are ghosts passing in the mist. You pick up a piece of slag glass. Waste from a glass factory. It is a swirl of purple and white, like a jagged gemstone. It is sharp. You almost cut yourself. You toss it back. It is pretty, but it bites. You are near the end of this section of the beach. The mud is giving way to larger stones and wrap placed to protect the wall. The intimate finds are thinning out. You have your collection of small wonders. They are not the heavy industrial profit of the coal and iron, but they are the soul of the catch. They are the things that make you wonder, that make you imagine. You pat your pocket. The marble clicks against the pipe. A comforting sound. You are a guardian of lost things. You are saving these fragments from oblivion. For a brief moment, you hold the past in your hand before selling it for the future. You look up at the sky. The clouds are breaking slightly, allowing a few shafts of weak, watery sunlight to pierce the gloom. The light hits the water, turning the gray to a dazzling, painful silver. You squint. It is noon or thereabouts. The tide has turned. The water is creeping back up the beach. The window of opportunity is closing. The river is coming back to hide its secrets. You adjust the heavy sack one more time. The coal is digging into your lower back. The iron sash weight is bruising your hip. But the small pocket, the pocket with the marble and the pipe, feels light. It feels like hope. You trudge forward, leaving the domestic graveyard behind, moving towards the solitude of the lower reaches. You are a Victorian mudlark, and you have harvested the memories of the city. The City of London is a machine that manufactures noise. If you were to stand on the pavement of the Strand or Cheapside right now, your ears would be assaulted by a relentless, grinding cacophony. The iron-rimmed wheels of omnibuses crashing over granite sets, the frantic clattering of horses' hooves. Thousands of them, striking the stone in a chaotic drumroll. The shouting of costermongers selling herring and watercress. The mechanical shriek of steam whistles from the railway termini, and the low, constant hum of 1,000,000 people living in close quarters. It is a roar, a physical pressure that pushes against the eardrums and vibrates in the chest. It is the sound of progress, the sound of the capital of the world. But you are not on the Strand. You are 20 feet below it, standing on a strip of wet gravel. And down here, the world has been muffled. You have entered the zone of the river's silence. It is not a true silence, of course. Absolute silence does not exist in nature, but it is a profound, heavy quiet that stands in stark contrast to the riot happening above the embankment wall. The massive stone retaining walls that line the river act as a sound barrier, reflecting the city's noise back up into the sky. What filters down to you is stripped of its sharp edges. The shouts become murmurs, the wheel clatter becomes a distant, rhythmic drone, like the sound of the ocean in a seashell. You exist in an acoustic shadow, a secret pocket of calm carved out by the water. You stop walking. You have been moving for hours, your body locked into the stooped, repetitive posture of the scavenger. Your back aches with a dull, persistent throb, the muscles along your spine tight as bowstrings. Your legs feel heavy, the boots dragging in the mud. You decide, just for a moment, to stand straight. You unhook your thumbs from the straps of the sack and let your shoulders drop. You take a deep breath. The air here is different. It does not taste of horse manure and coal smoke, the twin perfumes of the street. It tastes of cold water, wet stone, and the deep, organic decay of the riverbed. It is a raw, elemental scent. You look out across the water. The fog has mostly cleared, leaving behind a sky of pale, washed-out gray. The water reflects this grayness, creating a vast, shifting mirror that stretches from bank to bank. You are struck by the solitude. Despite the millions of people surrounding you, despite the ships moving on the water, you feel completely alone. This is the paradox of the mudlark. You work in the heart of the most populous city on Earth, yet you occupy a space that no one else wants. You are standing on the land that the city forgot. This isolation produces a strange mental state. It is a form of urban meditation. Your mind, usually cluttered with the anxieties of survival, the price of bread, the cost of a bed in a lodging house, the cold, begins to empty out. You watch a piece of driftwood floating past. It bobs gently in the current, turning slowly. You watch it for a full minute, your eyes tracking its progress until it disappears downstream. You are not thinking about the wood, you are just watching. This is the mudlark's trance. It is a protective mechanism, a way for the brain to cope with the monotony and the cold. You become an observer, a passive camera recording the slow movements of the tide. Historians still argue whether the psychological profile of the Victorian scavenger was one of desperate, grinding misery, or if there was a recognized element of negative liberty, a freedom from the clock, the foreman, and the factory whistle that offered a peculiar, if harsh, type of autonomy. You do not know the term negative liberty. You only know that down here, no one is shouting at you. No one is telling you to work faster. The river is your only master, and the river is patient. You look at the embankment wall towering above you. It is a feat of engineering. Huge blocks of granite fitted together with precision. It separates the dry world of commerce from the wet world of scavenging. You can see the stains on the stone, the high watermark where the green algae stops and the soot, blackened stone begins. That line is your clock. When the water hits that line, you must be gone. But for now, the water is low, far below the mark. The sound of the water lapping against the shore is hypnotic. Slap, hiss, retreat. Slap, hiss, retreat. It is a heartbeat. It is slower than a human heart, slower than a watch. It is the pulse of the planet. You find your breathing syncing with it. You inhale as the wave comes in, exhale as it slides back out through the gravel. A gull lands on a wooden piling a few yards away. It folds its white wings and looks at you. Its eyes are yellow and cold, filled with a primal intelligence. It is a scavenger too. You are colleagues. It lets out a short, sharp cry, a lonely sound that echoes off the stone wall. You do not shoo it away. You enjoy the company. In the hierarchy of the river, the bird and the boy are equals. You both wait for the tide to reveal dinner. You feel a drop of rain on your cheek, then another. It is starting to drizzle, a fine, misty rain that is so light it feels like condensation. It does not soak you immediately. It just adds a layer of dampness to the already wet world. You pull your collar up tighter. The rain hisses softly as it hits the river, creating millions of tiny rings that intersect and overlap, destroying the mirror surface of the water. You find a large, flat stone that is dry, or at least drier than the mud, and you sit down. The sack rests heavily beside you. You need this pause. The calorie deficit of your trade is brutal. You are burning energy to keep warm, burning energy to walk, burning energy to carry the load. You reach into your pocket and pull out a crust of bread. It is stale, hard as wood, and wrapped in a piece of paper. You break off a piece. Your hands are black with coal dust and river slime, and some of that grime transfers to the bread. You eat it anyway. You taste the grit between your teeth. It is just carbon. It won't kill you. As you chew slowly, staring at the gray horizon, you notice the subtle colors of the river that are invisible to the hasty glance. The water is not just gray. In the eddies, it is a deep, bruised purple. Where the light hits the shallows, it is the color of tea. The mud itself ranges from the blue, gray of the clay to the rust, red of the iron deposits and the deep, velvet black of the coal beds. It is a somber palette, but a rich one. You think about the people above you. The clerks hunched over ledgers in gas-lit offices, scratching with steel nibs. The factory girls tending the spinning mules, their ears ringing with the noise of the shuttles. The rich in their carriages, worried about the mud splashing their silk hems. Do they have this? Do they have this quiet? You suspect they do not. They have warmth, they have food, but they do not have this space to breathe. There is a fringe theory among the river folk that the Thames itself has a memory, that the water retains the vibrations of everything that has happened along its banks, and if you sit quietly enough at low tide, you can hear the voices of the Romans, the Vikings, and the Tudors whispering in the static of the current. You listen. You hear the water. You hear the wind. You hear the distant city. You do not hear ghosts. The river is too busy dealing with the present to worry about the past. The past is just the debris you put in your sack. You finish the bread and brush the crumbs from your lap. The meal was small, but it settles the gnawing in your stomach. You feel a strange sense of peace. It is the peace of the slack water. The tide has stopped going out, but it hasn't started coming in yet. The river is in equilibrium. The world is paused. You look at your boots. The leather is soaked through, dark and swollen. You can feel the cold of the stones seeping up through the soles. But your feet are numb now, past the point of pain. It is a dull sensation, like walking on wooden blocks. You wiggle your toes inside the wet wool of your socks, just to make sure the connection is still there. You pick up a pebble and toss it into the water. Plip. The ripples spread out, perfect circles expanding until they are lost in the chop of the channel. You throw another. Plip. It is a child's game, a waste of energy, but you do it anyway. It is an assertion of agency. You are affecting the river, however slightly. You scan the foreshore from your seated position. From this lower angle, the landscape looks different. You see the ridges and furrows of the mud more clearly. You see the tiny tracks of crabs and worms. You see the way the debris accumulates in lines, dictated by the currents. You are reading the topography of the bottom. You realize that you have become invisible. A police boat rows past, 20 yards out. The officers are looking at the banks, scanning for trouble. They look right over you. You are so still, so colored by the mud and the coal, that you have blended into the background. You are part of the scenery. If you moved, they might see you. But you do not move. You hold your breath. The boat passes. The oars creak, creak, splash, creak, splash. The sound fades. You exhale. Being invisible is your best defense. The solitude allows you to notice the small tragedies of the river. Near your foot, half buried in the sand, is the skeleton of a bird. Delicate, hollow bones bleached white, the rib cage like a tiny cathedral. It is beautiful in its geometry. Further down, a drowned rat, bloated and hairless. Life and death are mixed together here in a slurry. The river does not judge. It accepts everything. You think about the Toshers. Again, the men in the sewers. Their world is dark and enclosed, a claustrophobic tunnel of brick. You prefer this. You have the sky. Even a gray sky is better than a brick ceiling. You have the air. Even damp air is better than sewer gas. You have the horizon. You are a creature of the open edge. You feel a shift in the wind. It was blowing downstream, carrying the city's smoke away. Now, it swirls and pushes upstream. The smell of the salt becomes stronger. The air feels heavier. This is the signal. The tide is turning. The ocean is pushing back. The great lung of the estuary is inhaling. You watch the water line at the edge of the mud. A small stone, which was dry a moment ago, is now wet. A minute later, it is submerged. The water is creeping forward. It is relentless. It does not rush. It steals the land inch by inch. This is the end of the slack water. The equilibrium is broken. The peace of the low tide is over. You stand up. Your joints crack and protest. The cold has settled into your hips while you sat. You groan, a low sound that is lost in the wind. You pick up the sack. It feels heavier now, as if gravity has increased while you rested. You swing it onto your shoulder. finding the groove in the muscle. The familiar weight is almost comforting. It is the weight of success. You look back at the spot where you sat. The impression of your body is there in the sand, a flat place in the chaos. In an hour, the water will cover it. In 6 hours, the tide will recede again, and the impression will be gone, wiped clean by the river. It is a sobering thought. You leave no permanent mark. You begin to walk again, but the urgency has returned. The meditative trance is broken by the reality of the incoming flood. The river rises fast in the Thames. If you linger too long on the low mud, you can be cut off, trapped against the high walls with the water rising to your neck. It has happened to others. You have seen the posters for the drowned. You check your exit route. The stairs are a mile away. You have time, but no time to waste. You stick to the higher ground now, the band of shingle near the wall. The mud is treacherous when the tide turns. It becomes softer, more eager to swallow a boot. You walk with purpose. The silence is still there, but it feels different now. It feels expectant. The river is waking up. You pass the pilings of an old wharf. The water is swirling around them, creating little whirlpools. The sound of the water changes from a lap to a gurgle. It is the sound of filling. The river is filling the empty spaces. You find yourself humming a tune. It is a low, monotonous melody, something you heard a busker play on a penny whistle weeks ago. You don't know the name of it. You just hum it to match the rhythm of your walking. Dum, da, dum, da, dum. It fills the space inside your head, pushing out the cold. You see a glimmer of something in the gravel. You stop. You shouldn't stop. The tide is coming, but the habit is too strong. You stoop. It is a piece of quartz, a rough crystal. It is not valuable, but it is pretty. It looks like a piece of frozen light. You pick it up and put it in your pocket, a souvenir of the quiet hour. You look up at the city again. The gas lamps are starting to flicker on, even though it is only afternoon. The fog is thickening again, rolling in with the tide. The buildings are becoming silhouettes. The noise seems to be getting louder as the water rises, as if the sound barrier is losing its effectiveness. The spell of the solitude is breaking. You are transitioning back. You are leaving the wild, quiet world of the river bed and returning to the noisy, human world of the street. You feel a pang of regret. You will miss this gray, empty space. You will miss the feeling of being the only person on earth. But you cannot stay. To stay is to drown. You trudge on, the sack bumping against your hip, the water licking at your heels. You are walking the border between two worlds, and the border is moving. You keep your eyes on the path ahead, but your ears are still tuned to the water, listening to the whisper of the tide as it chases you home. You are a mudlark, and you know that the river only lends you this land for a few hours at a time. The lease is up. It is time to go. Hanward count 2, 495 Toshers waiting Sion Tianui Section 7. The river has reclaimed its bed. The grey water, swollen and churning with the incoming tide, has swallowed the mud, the gravel, and the secrets you spent the last 6 hours uncovering. You are standing at the top of the slippery stone stairs, your hand gripping the iron rail, which is wet with condensation. You look back one last time. The world you inhabited, that vast, open, monochrome landscape, is gone. It is just water now, slapping aggressively against the embankment wall, erasing your footprints as if you were never there. You turn your back on the Thames. The transition is jarring. You step off the river stairs and onto the cobblestones of the street. Instantly, the acoustic shadow lifts. The roar of London returns. It is evening now, the gloaming, that suspended moment between the death of the day and the birth of the night. The gas lamps are sizzling to life, casting long, flickering shadows that dance across the wet pavement. You are no longer a hunter. You are a beast of burden. The sack on your back is a crushing weight. The coal, the iron sash weight, the copper nails, the lead piping, it all settles into a dense, unyielding mass that pulls your shoulders down and forces your chin toward your chest. You do not walk, you trudge. Your boots, heavy with water and caked with the clay that refused to be scraped off, strike the stones with a dull, flat sound that is lost in the city's din. You head inland, away from the grand thoroughfares and into the labyrinth of the back streets. You are heading for the marine store dealer. This is the destination of every mudlark, every bone grubber, every rag picker in the city. It is the funnel through which the city's waste is filtered back into its economy. The streets here are narrow, the buildings leaning in toward each other as if conspiring to block out the sky. The fog is trapped here, thick and yellow, swirling around the legs of the pedestrians. You navigate by smell as much as by sight. You pass a tannery, the smell of curing leather and urine sharp enough to make your eyes water. You pass a brewery, the warm, yeasty scent of fermenting hops offering a brief, comforting blanket of aroma. You keep your head down. You are carrying value, however meager, and the streets are not always safe. But you look like what you are, a walking pile of mud. Most people give you a wide berth, not out of respect, but out of a desire to keep their own clothes clean. You are a pariah of the pavement, untouchable in your grime. You reach the dealer's yard. It is a gaping maw in the side of a warehouse, a dark opening that breathes out the smell of rust and dust. Above the door hangs a sign, the paint peeling, depicting a black doll, the traditional sign of the rag and bone shop. You step inside. The interior is a cavern of chaotic order. Piles of rags, sorted by color and material as linen, cotton, wool, reach up to the ceiling like soft, rotting stalagmites. Barrels of bones, white and yellow, stand in the corner. Heaps of iron, twisted and brown with rust, spill over the floor. The air is thick with dust motes dancing in the single shaft of gaslight that illuminates the counter. The dealer stands behind the scales. He is a man who looks as though he has been constructed from the very spare parts he buys. His skin the color of old parchment, his eyes hard and metallic like the coins he dispenses. He does not greet you. There is no good evening, no how was the river. This is a transaction, not a social call. You approach the counter and swing the sack off your shoulder. It hits the floor with a heavy, satisfying thud that shakes the dust from the floorboards. The relief is instantaneous. Your spine, compressed for hours, seems to expand. You roll your shoulders, hearing the joints pop. You feel light, dangerously light, as if a sudden gust of wind could blow you away now that your anchor is gone. You append the sack. The contents spill out onto the sorting table. A cascade of black coal, followed by the clatter of the iron sash weight, the dull thud of the lead pipe, and the chiming sound of the copper nails. A cloud of coal dust rises, settling on the counter, on the dealer's ledger, on your eyelashes. The sorting begins. It is a silent ritual. The dealer moves with practiced speed, his hands, protected by fingerless gloves, darting into the pile. He separates the coal first. It is swept into a wooden measure. It is not weighed, it is estimated by volume. He nods. It is a good haul, enough to fill a scuttle. Next, the iron. The sash weight and the hinge are thrown onto the large iron scale. The weights are added to the other side, black iron discs that clank as they stack. The arm of the scale swings, oscillates, and settles. Iron is cheap. You need a lot of it to make a penny. But the sash weight is heavy. It tips the balance. Then the lead. The piping is weighed separately. Lead is worth more than iron. The dealer scratches a figure on a slate with a piece of chalk. Finally, the copper. This is the moment of truth. You watch his hands. He picks out the nails, the rove, the strip of sheathing. He examines the cartwheel. Penny you found. He rubs it with his thumb to check it is not counterfeit or too degraded. He adds it to the copper pile. He places these items on the small brass scales, the ones used for precious metals. The little brass weights are placed with tweezers. The scale balances. You reach into your pocket, the safe pocket. You pull out the clay pipe with the Turk's head. You place it on the counter. The dealer picks it up, inspects the bowl, checks the stem for cracks. He nods once. It is a saleable item. You pull out the military button. He takes that too. You hesitate, your hand touching the marble and the fossil in your pocket. You leave them there. The marble is not for sale. The fossil is your luck. Some things are too small to have a price, or too personal to lose. The dealer does the mental arithmetic. He opens a drawer under the counter. The sound of coins rattling together is the most beautiful music you have heard all day. He counts out the money. It is not gold. It is not paper. It is a small pile of copper coins, pennies, halfpennies, farthings. He slides them across the wooden counter. You scoop them up. They are cold and hard. You count them quickly. It is a fair sum. Not a fortune. Not enough to buy a new coat or a ticket to America, but enough. Enough for a bed. Enough for food. Enough to do it all again tomorrow. You nod at the dealer. He has already turned away, looking at the next mudlark who has just entered the shop. You are dismissed. You walk back out into the street. The night has fully descended now. The fog is thicker, turning the gas lamps into glowing orbs of orange suspended in the gloom. You feel the coins in your pocket, clinking against the marble. You are rich for the next 12 hours. Your first stop is the baked potato man. You can smell his cart before you see it. The scent of roasting potatoes and charcoal cutting through the damp air. He stands on the corner, a glowing beacon of warmth. His portable oven, a tin contraption with a fire in the bottom, radiates heat. You buy a potato. He slices it open, the steam rising in a white plume, and slaps a pat of butter inside. He hands it to you wrapped in a piece of paper. You do not eat it immediately. You hold it in both hands. It is a hot coal that does not burn. The warmth seeps into your palms, thawing the frozen bones of your fingers. It travels up your wrists into your arms. It is a visceral ecstasy. You walk down the street, cradling the potato like a holy relic. You take a bite. The skin is crisp, the inside fluffy and hot. It tastes of earth and fire and salt. It is the best thing you have ever eaten. It always is. Hunger is the finest sauce, and you have been marinating in it all day. You continue your walk home. The city is changing. The office workers have gone. The night shift is emerging. You pass a gin palace, the windows bright, and etched with frosted glass patterns. You hear laughter and the sound of a piano coming from inside. It is a warm, golden world, but it is a trap. Jinn steals the coins and leaves you cold in the morning. You walk past. You have a bed to pay for. You navigate the rookeries, the dense, overcrowded slums where the poor of London hive together. The buildings loom over you, laundry lines crisscrossing the alleyways like spiderwebs. You can hear the sounds of life spilling out of the windows. A baby crying, a couple arguing, a dog barking. It is a chaotic, human noise, comforting in its density. You reach your lodging house. It is a tall, narrow building with peeling paint. You enter the hallway. It smells of boiled cabbage and damp wool. You pay the landlord at the door 4 pence for a bed. He takes your coins without looking up. You climb the stairs. They are steep and narrow, worn into hollows by generations of tired feet. You are on the top floor, the attic. It is cheaper there, though colder in winter and hotter in summer. You open the door to the dormitory. It is a long room lined with beds, simple iron frames with straw mattresses. It is dark, lit only by a single rushlight sputtering in the corner. Most of the beds are already taken. Mounds of gray blanket rise and fall with the rhythm of sleep. The air is thick with the sound of snoring, a collective drone of exhausted humanity. You find your bed in the corner. You sit down on the edge. The mattress rustles. It is not soft, but it is off the ground. You begin to undress. You take off your boots first. It is a struggle. The leather has shrunk and stiffened as it dried. You pry them off, your feet emerging pale and wrinkled, the skin puckered like a prune from the hours of soaking. You rub them, bringing the blood back. The relief is immense. You take off your jacket, the waistcoat, the scarf. You hang them on a nail above the bed. They are heavy with the river's dampness. They will not dry fully by morning, but they will rest. You check the pockets. You take out the marble and the fossilized belemnite. You place them on the floor beneath your bed. They are your anchors, your little pieces of the deep time that exists below the city. You lie down. The blanket is scratchy and smells of other people, but it holds the heat. You curl onto your side, pulling your knees up to your chest. The position of the mudlark, the stoop, follows you even into sleep. You close your eyes. The noise of the street outside is muffled here, distant. You are back in an acoustic shadow, similar to the one under the embankment wall. Your body begins to shut down. The muscles in your back unclench, releasing the tension of the sack. The ache in your legs transforms into a heavy, dull thrumming. You can still feel the motion of the river. It is a phantom sensation, a swaying in your inner ear. You feel the ground beneath you rising and falling gently, as if the lodging house itself were a barge floating on the tide. You replay the day in your mind. The cold shock of the morning air, the gray expanse of the mud, the flash of the copper nail, the smooth touch of the clay pipe, the weight of the iron, the taste of the potato. It flows past your mind's eye like the river water, a continuous, looping stream of sensation. You think about the tide. Right now, out in the dark, the water is high. It is lapping against the top of the stairs, covering the mud completely. The river has taken back its territory. The treasures, the coins, the pipes, the bones, are hidden again, buried under feet of swirling water. They are safe. They are waiting. Tomorrow, the moon will drag the water away again. The river will retreat. The curtain will lift. And you will be there. You will wake up before the dawn, put on your stiff boots, and walk down the stairs into the fog. You will do it all again. But that is tomorrow. For now, there is no mud, there is no cold, there is no weight. There is only the warmth of the blanket and the heavy, irresistible pull of sleep. You let go. You drift. You sink down deeper and deeper, past the noise of the city, past the worries of the coins, settling softly into the dark, quiet silt of your dreams. You have finished the day. The cycle is complete. The long grey loop of the river has turned once more, carrying the tide out to the sea and bringing it back again to the city walls. You have walked the edge of the world, balancing between the stone and the water, the past and the present. Now the city sleeps around you. The millions of souls who call this vast, smoky metropolis home have retreated into their rooms, turning down the gas lamps and closing the shutters against the night. The noise of the wheels and the hooves has faded to a whisper, a distant hum that serves only to deepen the silence of your own room. The river flows on in the darkness, black and heavy, moving with a power that never tires and never stops. It washes over the clay pipes and the copper nails, tumbling them gently in the silt, polishing them for the next hand that might find them. It hides the history of the world in its cold embrace. But you do not need to search any more. Your sack is empty. Your burden is set down. The weight that pulled at your shoulders is gone, replaced by a lightness that spreads through every limb. Your hands are still, resting at your sides. Your feet are warm. The cold wind of the estuary cannot reach you here. There is nothing left to find tonight. There is nothing left to carry. The mud has settled. The water is calm. You are part of the stillness now. Let the rhythm of the river take over your breathing. Slow, steady, deep, in and out, rising and falling, just like the tide. Drift along the current of the dark. There is no rush to return to the surface. The morning is a lifetime away. For now, there is only this soft, enveloping quiet. Rest your eyes, rest your mind. Let the fog roll in and cover everything in a soft, gray blanket of peace.